Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. John Henry Soto here, as always, and of course, my co-host for the last 6 to 7 years, 6 years, George Batista is in the house, and we are here. We are live. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. George Batista is in upstate New York, and we coming to you live here with some um, interesting topics today. George and I have always been. Um, George and I are cousins. For those of you who don't know, we played in a band together. We recorded some records. We played a lot. We did some really great things in music, and about 6 years ago, we started. I think it was about 6 years ago. Was it 2020? Right.
Roughly,
We're
roughly,
halfway
yeah,
through.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's going to be about 6 years.
almost.
And we've interviewed lots of people and we've had a great time. And one of the things that we like to do is to bring up topics and situations into our audience and into our conversations that are basically not necessarily controversial, but at least have us think about something and give us something to kind of focus on. So today we're going to talk about being sensitive. Like it seems like George and I grew up in the South Bronx, so there's a little bit of a difference in sensitivity. Um, where we're nice people, we're not mean or anything like that, but we're not sensitive, overly sensitive to the point where we can't really function, and we let things get us to such a degree that that it makes our lives bad. Right? This is what happens. You actually literally can make your life extremely bad if you're. Am I still on?
Yes.
Okay. Can you step back and go over there? So it's my son.
Those you have groupies there or something.
Can you get all these people back, please? Yeah, police line needs to be a little further back, okay? Because they're throwing me underwear and it's just very, very distracting. Um, I can't right now. My phone, I'm recording. I'm on my phone too. Your mother is coming out there. She'll do it. And actually, I don't have access to that. Sorry. This is a live show, everyone. So my son has a tendency of ruining my show almost weekly. But I love him because he's a good kid. All right. So how you doing, George?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about sensitivity, and
Well, one of the we've obviously we talk a lot about the youth and people that are overly sensitive and the cancel culture right
right.
now, the the wokeness and all these things that we all have, all these terms now that we talk about. But if you want to really look at something, you can look back at the 60s, let's say, the love generation, right? The peace and love generation. That was a very really sensitive period as well. And not only that, but if you listen to the music of that era, let's say the mid 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, especially we talk about, I hate the term yacht rock, but it's a term that people use, but that sort of softer rock music, very, very emotional, very sensitive. I mean, do we have the same sensitivity in our music today that we had 50, 60 years ago? I don't think so.
No, no.
So are we really, where is the sensitivity coming from? Because back in the days, like you break up with your girlfriend, you put it, and every song that comes on the radio is the song that's ready to destroy your heart, right?
True.
you know and that part of it is still around. Heartbreak still happens,
Right.
but what exactly is it about today that has made this idea of being so overly emotional? Like, what is it exactly?
I think
Like, tell me,
I'm going to explain everything right now. I'm going to solve it.
what is going to solve this?
I'm going to solve it. I've solved everything. I think sensitivity is. Yeah, I mean, you did say that there was sensitivity in the '60s, especially with you could talk about the whole all the movements, right? You had the Vietnam movement. You had, you know,
Women's
yeah, you had
right,
obviously you had all the
civil rights.
civil rights, right? You had all that type of stuff, but there was a there was a toughness that people had back then.
Right.
There was a, people grind, would grind things out. They figured out how to persevere through tough times in those. I mean, our parents and grandparents did. Especially look at what our grandparents went through.
Yeah.
Right back in those days where they had to feed their family. They didn't have time to be sensitive. They didn't have time to deal with all the nonsense. They were working, and they had to put food on the table, and that was it. That's what they did. I think the sensitivity issue happened within the last, I don't know, I want to say the last 20 years.
Yeah, 25. I would say 20 to 20 to 30 years, I would say. It started kind of building up.
Yeah.
And I can tell you one of the reasons that I personally think that it started happening was schools started giving eighth place trophies
Right.
to kids and started validating those that were not really working hard, because they thought that if you just made them all feel good, that this would work.
Right.
So it took away the incentive of a child wanting to excel in order to get the validation and to try to be number 1, 2, or 3. Right. We used to have that, right? It was gold, silver, bronze. That's it.
Yeah.
After bronze, if you come in 1 split second behind the guy at the bronze, you go home with nothing.
Yes.
You didn't make it, unfortunately, right? Even though you worked really hard, it just didn't happen. And these were the things that we knew. You knew that you had to, at some point, you had to work really hard, and nobody was going to give you anything. It was going to be on your own merit. And I think that was actually started for me. I feel that it started sort of the process of getting these kids, graduating them, then sending them to college, and then not teaching them about life in college.
Right.
So there was no real life lessons in college. You're taught almost nonsense in college. I mean, you're not taught how to open up a bank account, what's a mortgage, what are interest rates, what are investments, how can I balance a budget, credit. What's credit? What's a line of credit? You don't go to school to learn any of these things.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that these kids that now have been completely babied through all their first 8th to 8th grade, and then all through high school, now they're in college again, not being educated in any way, just being given just enough for them to go be able to file papers and answer emails, and just enough for them to, unless it's a specific job, a lawyer, a doctor, or something like that. But if you, like, people who get a degree in marketing, it's like, or a degree in communications, or a degree in social sciences or something, you can get a job probably as a teacher, or you can get a job in an office doing something in an office. Doesn't mean that you're going to be the marketing executive of a big company, if you got a marketing degree. It doesn't assure you of that, right? It does statistically, though. If you do have a college degree, you do make more money. Statistically, you do make more money if you have a college degree. Not 100% more, but it is a higher percentage. So you end up making a little bit more money because they have to pay, because you had a college degree. Okay, they'll pay you, but not necessarily doing the job that you might want to do. But now you're not used to the boss saying you got to be here at 9. Why were you late? Well, I was traffic. Okay, we got to leave earlier then. And they're devastated. They're crushed. They haven't been told that they were wrong about anything. They've been pampered for the last 20 years of their lives. And it becomes it becomes sad. You see them on these platforms, like the Starbucks people, they're crying because they have to do a double shift. One shift is 4 hours, so they got to work 8 hours. I'm like, bitch, that's a normal day for like almost all Americans that work. What are you talking about? But this idea that you can't, And then there's this safe space. There's, it's just so weak, and it's like this generation is, some of these men are so weak. I have a story with Charlie Kirk, but I'll tell you.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of that. I think definitely the school issue, 100%, Evo, and that bleeds into the work issue. But I think it bleeds into the home issue too. And I think, and I might be a little controversial in saying some of this, but I mean nothing crazy, but I think the way we're raising our kids is very different now. Okay, and in terms of, because of the law now is stricter, right, and has gotten stricter in how, like, the law has seeped into how you're raising your kids now. Now, granted, in the old days, right, back when I was a kid, if I did something bad, my mother or my father would have whipped my butt. Okay, now you can't do that, right? You can't do that because it's child abuse. Okay, fine. But I think it's been taken way to the other side. I think now parents, not all, but I think there's a generation of parents now who feel that they can't discipline their children at all.
Right.
I think they feel that they're supposed to be their children's buddy instead
Right.
of their parents. And we all know what happens when you could even be somebody's boss. And I was funny. I was having this conversation with my daughter, who's now back. She went back to college, but when she was at ShopRite, and she was given managerial duties, even though she's not a manager, because everybody trusts her. So she had to tell friends what to do. And, friends sometimes didn't take her seriously because of that.
'Cause they were
And I
friends.
told, and I had to have a conversation when I said, Jordan, you're going to have to understand that sometimes when you're friends with somebody and you end up being in charge of them, sometimes they think they can get away with it, or they're not going to take you that seriously.
Oh, they can
And
resent you too.
they could resent you, and you're going to have to be tough with them and say, look, we're friends outside of this, but here we have to do business. But I'm thinking that, in terms of parenting, parents have become, in my opinion, way too lenient in terms of letting their children get away with stuff,
Yeah.
thinking there's no consequences to anything. And that bleeds into society, because now I can become an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, go into whatever, and then I get a participation trophy, and then I go out into the big bad world, and I'm wondering why I don't get everything that I want,
Yeah.
because I'm not disciplined. And
Right.
as soon as somebody yells at me, I become overly sensitive. I cry and I quit the job instead of fixing what I have to fix.
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah. I think it's personal responsibility. A lot of people don't, they raise their kids to just say, well, it's okay. It's not your fault.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not your fault. It's not your fault. Society is not your fault. And then you grow up thinking nothing is your fault,
Right.
when in actuality, everything is your fault. It's
Right.
you're responsible for every action that happens to you, every decision that you make, every step you take is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's just a real hard pill to swallow for some of these youngsters that come up. They've been told that they have certain rights that they don't really have. When you take a job with a company, they're paying you, right? I think Stallone had a great thing in one of his recent series where he says, the reason for college, right, is for you to spend 4 years, and I think Elon Musk even talks about this, but for you to spend 4 years, so the boss could see that you can do for 4 years. You finished some assignments, you showed up on time, so if he hires you, you don't mess up his business.
Right.
And that's basically what they're doing now.
Yeah.
They're just in the hopes that you can just sit at that computer and make those phone calls or call those people up or answer the questions or do customer service, whatever the product is that you're delivering or that you got hired for. They're just hoping that you can just do just enough to get through to do stuff, and within the batch of everything that we're talking about, yes, there are brilliant people, there are a lot of great, smart people that are doing stuff, but in actuality, they're losing so much respect from people our age,
Right.
and older, that it's harder for them to show up to work enthusiastic about wanting to build something because they've always felt that building anything has been pretty easy for them. They've
Yeah.
always been given stuff. So
Yeah.
why should I be hired by this guy? Now I got to bust my ass for him.
Right.
And like, it's the whole socialism kind of thing, right? And it's the guy. There's a couple of examples, right? Ben Shapiro had a great conversation with this guy who was saying, like, they were talking about a pencil factory. Have you ever heard this clip? Where he's talking about a pencil factory, like, he just used that as an example.
Hmm.
Just the guy is like, he's kind of pushing for socialism, or he's talking like nonsense.
Hmm.
So he says, well, the guy who's, you have in a pencil, right? You have a pencil company. Well, the guy that's doing all the work, they should get paid more money because the owner, he's the one that's collecting everything.
Right.
And and he goes, no, the owner has all the risk.
Yeah.
The owner is the guy who has to buy the wood for the pencil, has to buy the lead, has to buy the rubber for the eraser, has to build the machines, has to invest in all the machinery, the taxes that come with it, the insurance that comes with it. Then he has to pay people. Why should you get more? You have to get paid on what it is that it's worth.
Right.
Now, are businesses underpaying? Of course they are.
Yeah.
Look at what happened with Boeing.
That's right.
Right? I mean, Boeing, they got the CEO was getting $33 million he got in a year. That was his salary.
Hmm.
And the employees got a 1% pay increase within the last 8 years. It was 1%. He
Right.
got a 40 something percent increase within 1 year.
Right.
He got a $33 million, right? So yeah, there are companies that are going to do that, and they are going to fail, obviously, because they got caught, and now they've lost credibility. But the idea that that your presence, and this is what frustrates me about some of the younger, and again, this is not a blanket statement to everyone. This is just what I've observed, from some of the people that I've worked with.
Hmm.
George knows way better because George works in HR, and he's hired and interviewed thousands in over 20 years of doing it. So he has a better understanding of it. But me, as somebody has worked and also has hired as well, when the idea that your presence is enough,
Right.
the arrogance
Yeah.
that, well, I showed up this week, I showed up 3 days, out of the 5 days, I showed up on time 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean? You know what I mean? One of the examples that I gave once when I was managing, I took and I talked about this before. I took an hourly salary from an employee she always came like 5-10 minutes late.
Mm.
Every single day she would clock in 5-10 minutes late. So I'm doing payroll, and if I'm looking at the payroll, all the punch-ins,
Right.
I'm seeing all the punch-ins are 5 to 10 minutes late every single day that she would work. So I called her in and I said, is it hard for you to get here on time? I'll shift, I'll work with you. I'll shift your schedule to give you more time to get here. And she said, no, it's not that. It's just, it's just, she said, well, one day, then she says, the thing that really got me, well, it's only 5 minutes. And I said, well, let me explain to you what 5 minutes is, right? How much do you get an hour? And I can't remember. I think it was like maybe 12 or whatever. I said, okay, so, and I did the whole math. I just subtracted what that would be, $5 of 5 minutes late of an hour. You get the percentage. Then you take that, and I did it for a whole year. And I said, this is what you owe because we're paying you.
Yeah.
We're still paying you for that time.
Right.
You weren't here, right?
Right.
But we still pay you because we have to round it to where, you know what I mean? And I don't, later on, the system came in where if you were 5 minutes late, you didn't get the full 1 hour. You got, and that became a later system. But during this period, we still pay you the hour. I said, so when you're not here, even if you're not getting paid, the time that we invested, we're supposed to have someone servicing a customer for those 5 minutes that you're not there. Someone else has to do it because you're not there. And then within those 5 minutes that you're not there, that person that's covering you is away from what they're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
And then somebody has to cover them. So you not being here for 5 or 10 minutes is creating this whole other thing that happens, and it's still money that it's still that member is still paying the same amount every month to get service at this time,
Yeah.
right? And so I had this whole thing set up. I had even a booklet. I had it all like laminated where I would go over to the numbers. But that seemed a much easier conversation to have back then when I was doing that kind of work, which I haven't been for a while. But that's kind of was okay. Today, if I were to have that conversation with someone, I'd be sent to HR because I'm harassing them.
Yeah, because the laws have shifted, right? So in the old days, when you look at HR or you just look at companies in general, the laws for the most part favored the company, right? The laws were designed
The
to
companies
favor.
were the ones that kind of made the laws.
They
Really,
made the right, exactly. They had
wrote them out.
they had the policies, they had the guidelines, right? You had basic law, which was, let's say, federal law, all those types of, but then you had then you would have company guidelines and policies, right?
Right.
And everything was designed to favor the company. Now that has shifted, where where a lot of them now is favoring more of the employee. Now the interesting thing about this is a couple of things. Number one, employees don't understand, and this is one of the things that I have had conversations in HR with employees and directors and stuff like that, right? An employee of a company doesn't understand that their salary, what they get from the company, what the company pays them, is not the total compensation. Okay, they have to understand that benefits is part of the conversation. What the company pays for benefits is part of the conversation. When they take time off and they get paid for that, they're not actually productive in their job, right? That's part of the compensation. There's so
The
much.
company still has to pay them.
Exactly. There's way more to the compensation than just their salary. They're just thinking their salary, and it's way more than that. That's the first thing. Second thing is, look at the whole piece with the WNBA, right?
Right. I was going to bring that up too.
WNBA loses $40 million. Okay, they lost 2024. They lost $40 million, so they are in the hole. The only reason that they still exist is because they are subsidized by the NBA, all right, which is the major stakeholder of the WNBA. But yet, the employees are upset, right? The players are upset that they're not getting paid, similar to the NBA.
It's such a ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous argument when you look at it financially, but they don't want to look at it financially.
No,
That's the problem. They don't want to look at it rationally. They want to look at it, because men get paid more. And in actuality, you can look at this and it's not even true. Men they get paid more because they do the jobs that a lot of women don't do, like construction, for instance.
right,
90, I think it's like 98% are men.
right,
Garbage people,
right.
garbage men. 98% are men or garbage workers, right? I mean, you can go on and just say the bricklayers, welders.
Yeah,
They're all, they're all men. People who build bridges and engineers and all that. So if anything, well, then start pushing these businesses towards women. Women
right,
should want to then start do these. What do women want to do? They want to be nurturers. They want to be nurses. They want to be teachers. They want to be doctors. They want to be lawyers. But still lawyers and those fields are still, except for teachers, primarily men.
right.
But teachers, nurses are, nurturers.
Yeah.
People that, because a woman is a natural nurturer. I mean, they want to do that. So that's part of the ridiculous thing about this whole NBA thing, is that if they really want this women's basketball to be a thing, then where are the women that want it? Because that's your audience then.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? That's your audience. If you're saying you want this woman thing, either bring the level of play higher and start cutting people that can't shoot or whatever. Just start, start really recruiting incredible players and get the quality of the playing to a degree that then men
Yeah.
will be interested in watching it, because men are, again, primarily they're the ones that are watching basketball.
Yeah.
They're watching all sports. It's mostly men. So any female league that comes in, you're going to struggle,
Yeah.
because where's your audience?
Right.
Well, your audience, there, I mean, it's just, it's an argument that really is no argument. I mean, it really is no argument. It's just a statistic. But again, the sensitivity of all this, that part of it is like, even us saying what we're saying right now, there's eyes rolling if people are watching, that disagree, and they're saying, well, you know, I don't even know what the argument is. I sometimes, like, I try to, in my head, I try to look at both sides of the argument, but then I start thinking about, well, there's really no argument. It's just, they've been told, or they've been, this is a, listen, the WNBA, is that what it is? The
The WNBA. Yeah. NBA.
WNBA and NBA is cute at this point right now.
Right.
You know what has actually gotten to the level of being like, whoa, like good, the UFC. Have you seen women's fighting at the UFC?
Yes. Yes.
I
Absolutely.
mean, they are women.
Yes.
We're not talking about when you have somebody with a swinger, with a swinger between the legs that actually is boxing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about actual women that are fighting,
Yeah.
and those fights are
Yeah. Brutal.
brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, brutal. I mean, really good fights. I mean,
Ronda Rousey. Yeah.
Rousey was an incredible fighter.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, Pam something. I can't remember her name.
I forgot the name.
Kate is another one. Kate. Anyway, I can't remember their names, but I see those highlights all the time, and I'm like, whoa, those are really, really great fighters. You know, where boxing didn't really go that route. Boxing, there was women's boxing for many, many years. Matter of fact, we interviewed, right, Boom Boom.
That's right. Yeah,
And we
we did.
interviewed her, and she was a great Golden Glove winner, great boxer. But it wasn't like massive.
Right. Correct.
But UFC, you can have a card that'll have two major fights, and one of the major fights will be, the women.
That's
you
right.
know,
That's right.
so you either bring up the quality to the point where people are gonna, or maybe the marketing is just really bad.
It
I
could
mean,
be.
the marketing is bad, because a lot of times now, when you talk about the women's basketball, now it's like it has this cloud of everyone being upset because of the money.
Yeah.
So it's already been tainted with this thing. It's like, push that aside and just go play basketball and go have some fun. You're not making any money for anybody.
Right. Exactly.
No money coming in. There's nothing. It's just the NBA is just saying, like, all right, here's another payment of $40 million that the NBA is just losing. They could just say, like, you know what? Nobody came. Bill Burr had a funny one, right? Because he's like, well, where are the women? Where y'all women? Yeah. Of course, he had a lot of profanity, but very, very funny, and he had a good point about that.
Yeah, but I think going back to the one good point that you made, kind of going back to the sensitivity issue, is the fact that the whole concept of it's not your fault, right? That whole concept, that I think is layered through every industry, and that even goes into health. It goes into sports. It goes into school. It goes into everything, because now the generations are being taught. I mean, I'm in the health field, so I look at health, right? Health is one of the biggest ones where they tell you it's not your fault. It's your genes. It's your parents. It's the toxic stuff. It's the this. It's the that. It's all this, but it's not you. Everything else to blame but you. So the fact that you ate like crap and all this, and you smoke and you drank and that has nothing to do with it. It has to be everything. And we've been brainwashed into that. So now the whole generation, right? When we look at fat shaming, for example, okay, I'm a person that I would like, I personally have worked with people who are overweight and helped them lose weight, right? I've had people for years and years ask me to work with them to lose weight, right? And for me, it was about them being healthy. That was the main thing. I could give a crap about fat shaming, not fat shaming, how big they are. No, I want you to be healthy. But
Right.
nowadays, no, it's not that. Because if you ask somebody to be healthy, well, what's wrong with the way I am? You're not
Right.
healthy.
Right.
That's the problem. You're not healthy. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it really does get, it gets pushed, like like
I
things like,
have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take
Yeah.
it's like they're completely justifying, all she has to really do is just kind of eat better foods,
Right.
not take this stupid pill,
Right.
right? But you can't say that because then now you're just being insensitive,
Right.
and that's where it gets really frustrating, But like, just a quick thing, because I wanted to show the Bill Burr clip real quick, but you know, um, so this is what Bill says. Bill.
Why are you always dragging us into this shit? I saw a woman a couple months back, professional soccer player, right? She goes on to ESPN or one of these sports channels, and she starts bitching, going like, I don't understand. How come female athletes don't make as much as male professional athletes? Right? And all of these men had to sit there and act like they didn't know what the answer was. They had to sit there like dumbfounded, like, I don't know. Why is that? That is a conundrum. I have no idea. Literally, I'm sitting at home screaming at the TV because you don't sell any fucking tickets. Nobody is going to women's soccer games. You're playing in a 20,000 seat arena. 1,500 people show up. That's not a good night. The promoter lost his fucking ass on that gig.
That was mostly soccer, but that was kind of like the same.
Yeah, it's the same concept,
premise,
right? It's Do you think that? What about an artist, right? A singer songwriter who's struggling and they write a song and they think the song is great, and then somebody online tells them it sucks. Do you think that do you think the generation now would be overly sensitive to that?
Sure. I'm in Nashville, right? So this is Music City, so you'll get a lot of support here, much more so than anywhere else I've ever lived, where people just love artists. We love each other.
Right.
So there's writing groups, and there's meetups, and there's a lot of jam sessions going on, and so it's there's that going on, right? But with anything else, you have to understand that the tough skin to be an artist is something that you will not succeed in anything if you cannot take criticism,
Right.
and not give a crap about it, and not care who says anything about it. You will not at all, it'll just be like, it's just not going to happen.
Well, that happened to me when I was a kid because I tried to write a song and John criticized it and he made fun of it. And
I saw your face smiling because I'm thinking
it completely destroyed my songwriting abilities. I could have been the next, who knows, right? I could have been the next James Taylor. And John, I ended up having to play the drum. John is the reason why I'm playing drums, because I left songwriting and I went behind the drums, and the rest is history.
If y'all would have heard this, you all would have been thanking me.
It could have been the next, I could have been the next George Lamond.
Poor George. Oh my God.
But you know what I did realize. Listen. It's one of those things where you get into it and you realize that's not my thing.
But it's not even that. But
you were a good songwriter.
But thank you. But that's not even the whole thing. The whole thing about it is that, again, you had to be tough,
True.
right?
True.
You had to be
I
tough.
had to
So,
deal
like
with it.
for instance, like what was that?
I said I had to deal with it.
Yeah, you had to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And same thing for us. I mean, when we were playing in our bands and stuff, you know, it's like we had a record that we put together. I think our first one that we ever put out, played it for somebody I can't remember, and and they were like, yeah, it's you know, you know, it's like, and that right there just crushes you.
Yeah. True.
You know, and
True.
I remember I was with Kelly. Kelly played a bass player, played with us, and then Kelly he grabbed. He was like, "Oh, all right, bro, all right. You don't like it, all right. We like it." But you know, you have to be tough enough to be like to take the
Yes.
criticism. You know, and that's always something that I think today is a lost thing. It's sort of like it's justified to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just stay at home and sulk, you know,
Yeah.
or I need therapy, or I need a service animal to be with me. I need a service cat or a hamster, just because I feel like I can't cope with this and I need this to go. I'm not saying animals don't help you heal. I love animals and they're great, but if you need it because someone made you feel bad, you know, like even with this whole political world that we're living in, you know, if you need a service animal because of the president, yikes. I mean, yikes.
Well, think
What are
about
you doing?
the Sylvester Stallone story. What if somebody comes up today and goes through what Sylvester Stallone went through in the 70s
The
to
guy
try
was
to get
told,
Rocky
I
done?
mean, the guy was told no, and then when they wanted to buy it afterwards, first of all, he was turned down a million times for a bunch of auditions and a bunch
Yeah.
of stuff. Then he ends up selling his dog
Mm.
to pay rent. He sells his dog, which he bought back later on after Rocky was a hit. But he sells his dog, and they didn't want him to play Rocky. They were like, "We'll buy it from you," but and they were going to give him, I think it was something like $200,000
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
to for Rocky. And when you have no money and you're
That's a-
selling your dog for food,
Yeah.
and somebody says here's $200,000 for that script, and he was so confident and he believed so much in his abilities to play this role, you know, that he just kept pushing and kept pushing, and he did it with almost no money.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people don't even realize that it was not a lot of money behind this thing. It was really, when you think about it, almost like today's standard of an independent film.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's like. But the rest is history. You know, he won an Academy Award for Best Screenplay. It was nominated for Best Film. He was, you know, I mean, just it went on and on and on, and that just propelled him. And I really like Stallone. I've always liked Stallone. I've always liked Stallone in bad movies. I've liked Stallone in interviews. I thought he was way smarter than what people would
Yeah.
imitate him as.
Sure.
I mean, this guy is a freaking genius. You know what I mean? His directing is fantastic. He's a great director. He's a great writer. I mean, Rocky, the movie Rocky, it was just I guess it was just called Balboa, I guess it was called, or something, where he does that famous speech that now it's become all
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
you are no one. It's harder than life, but it ain't about how hard you get hit. It's about
Yeah.
how hard you get hit and you stand up. You know, you get up, how much you can take. You know, that whole thing was like, you know, was so great. That was his writing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, so he's you know, he's a genius. But again, what if he would have just been like, all right, I need the money, and they're saying that I can't do it, that I'm not going to be good enough, and that, and just and give up. You know, and it happens. We don't know. That's the thing. That's the sad part. We don't know how many amazing artists are out there that we lost. And I don't mean lost that they died. I mean that lost because they gave up.
They gave up.
Stopped. You know, we just don't know that next thing. If they would have stayed in it for maybe like another year, that next year they would have been huge. You know,
That's
you
like
just
the Jewel
never,
story.
yeah, like Jules' story, and there's just, I mean, there's numerous stories. You know, we
Yeah.
talk about a lot about what's the guy from the Family Feud now? We've talked
Oh,
about
Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey's story. What
Yeah.
else? Freaking amazing story he has. Arsenio Hall has another story where he was living in his car, you know, and
Yeah.
just, you know, all these Rocky went to LA, had nowhere to stay. He calls Henry Winkler, who was friends with him. He's sleeping on Henry Winkler's couch, and then Henry Winkler obviously went on to become the Fonz, and everything was great. But you have this incredible drive that is very strong when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you get beat down, it's that childhood. Yeah, that's why I'm childish, maybe called childish a lot, but I try to remember what it was like to be a child and try to relive those moments. Even though I'm close to an old man now, I still feel like that child, that happy child that wants to take chances and risks and help people and laugh a lot. But you get beat down, and because of my upbringing, it was a little bit, I had a tough upbringing, so I had to grow up fast and I had to endure things that a lot of people didn't endure. I was able to take things. I mean, what? There's nothing compared. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't get the job. Nothing. Oh, the boss yelled at me. Nothing compared to what I went through. But when you don't have that, and you have the opposite of that, where everything is perfect. No, you're
Right.
perfect. You're fine. Here's a trophy. You're fantastic. Don't worry about it. That's even worse. And if you're talented and you go out there and somebody says, like to Elvis Presley, they said, don't quit your day job.
Yeah.
To Elvis Presley, don't quit your day job.
Look at that.
Fred Astaire, his report card: can't sing, can't act, can dance a little. That's what's written down. Can dance a little.
Crazy.
Michael Jordan getting cut
Getting cut.
from varsity.
Wasn't Jimi Hendrix also one of those that somebody didn't
Jimi
like him?
Hendrix in the States, in
Yeah,
America, Jimi Hendrix was, nobody got it.
Yeah.
He was put on a band, and he was put on in the back.
Yeah.
He's in his photos of him. You can check it out. And he's just a guitar player for this band, but he was doing all these things with the guitar, and he was playing with his teeth, and he was doing all stuff, and the people loved it, but the band hated it because it's like, what are you doing, man? We're trying to just be a band here. What are you trying to do? And he had to go to England, where Chaz Chandler found him from the Animals.
Mm-hmm.
Found him and was able to actually be like, this guy is phenomenal, and he put him on, and they didn't know what to do with him. He was opening for like the Monkees. It was like the Monkees were huge, and he's opening for the Monkees. It just didn't make sense. They didn't know what to do. They didn't realize, oh, he's another thing.
Yeah.
He's a level of, he's another, there's nothing like this.
Right.
Don't try to figure it out. We can't figure it out. It's a brand new thing. It's completely new. It's same thing with Van Halen. It was like, it's a new thing. Nobody has done this before. And so when Hendrix was able to finally find his voice, of course he had a lot of yes men around him, and the excess of life and all that stuff, whatever, was huge. But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, he didn't really listen to too many people.
Right.
If you watch interviews with him, I've seen pretty much everything on any interviews that you can find. I've seen everything on Hendrix. The documentary from the first documentary, I thought was the best one because it came in 1972, which was 2 years after he died.
Right.
So it was still fresh, and the people that were interviewing would still remember him very clearly. So it was a great interview, and you got to really see the life that he was living in. And a lot of people said, you know what? Whenever people were talking to him, he really wasn't listening. He was just listening to the music. Miles Davis is another one. Miles Davis was like, I'm not listening. Picasso was another one. They just don't care what you think.
Right.
Because they're doing exactly what they feel spiritually they should be creating. And when you can rise above that, and when you can really capture that feeling and that part of who you are, and you see it, and then you hold on to it, and you're like, this is who I really am. And when life starts challenging you and people start throwing things at you, you still have this stability of this is who I am. I don't care what they're throwing at me. This is who I am. When you have that, nothing can stop you. You can figure things out. Life will get always tough.
Yep.
Let me tell you something. Those college graduates, you graduate from college with $200,000 debt into you get married and you get another $500,000 debt. Then you get two cars and you get another $100,000 debt on top of all that. Let me tell you something. That getting out of that is hard.
Yes.
That is almost an impossibility. That's where the mental health issue comes in. It's because they're doing something they don't like.
Right.
They didn't realize it because you don't have time to live. You have to explore. You have to like go out there and make mistakes and trip and fall and be like, oh God, I can't believe I did that, or figure it out, and then you regroup. You sit down, you get down with a good friend, somebody that can acknowledge you and listen to you. Get a cup of coffee and you sit down and you start having conversations. You say, well, this happened, this happened, and this happened. Oh, okay. Well, maybe you should try this and this. Oh, maybe that's a good idea. Okay, maybe I'll try something like that. You keep living the life. You don't just like graduate from, I'm here, I graduated, I have a college degree, now I'm going out. No, the world is going to kick your ass. The world is going to kick your ass. And if you can't take it, if you're overly sensitive and you're going to cry at every single barrier that you hit, which you're going to hit them all the time, whether you're driving, your coffee is wrong, they don't have the skim milk that you wanted, they don't, the office, the boss is a jerk. He's always like giving me a hard time. Whatever those things that keep piling up, they're going to happen to you. So this is why George and I always talk about the drive.
Yes.
Have the purpose. Know what your purpose is. If you know what your purpose is, that's all you need to know. But a lot of people, you'd be surprised. Tell them what's your purpose. You say, oh well, I work at this place. No.
What's your purpose?
What's your purpose?
Exactly. Yep.
What's your purpose?
Yep.
Well, my goals are to be no. Not your goals. I know your goals. You want to get a bigger house. You want to actually get a family. You want to make more money. You want to go on vacations. You want to travel the world. What is your purpose? You tell people that. You ask someone what their purpose is, and they hit a wall.
Yeah.
Because they would never ask,
right,
what's your purpose? And they never thought about it because they thought that it was a goal.
Exactly.
They thought that their purpose was a goal. They thought that, well, I want to get my college degree and then I want to get married. I want to have children. Those are goals. Those are great goals, but is that your purpose? And maybe for some women they are, a woman wants to be a mom and that's her purpose. She wants to raise children and she wants to be a housewife. Maybe that's her purpose, but is that really her purpose? Or is it just that she wants to have family, maybe increase family values and maybe disseminate family values? Maybe that could be a bigger purpose.
Right.
A purpose.
Well, that's to me, I think about purpose being, true purpose is the thing that you would do regardless of whether you even got paid to do it.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? That's the purpose. And this to me, again, also goes back to as parents, where when we're raising our kids, and again, I'm trying to be preacher or anything like that. Just some kind of the way I raised my daughter, because I had these things in my head prior to, well, when my kid was young, and I said, I want to raise her where she's going to understand that there is going to be lumps and bumps. She's going to have to fight through these lumps and bumps. She's going to have to realize that life is going to hit her in all different directions and she's going to have to deal with it. I don't want to raise her to the point where she could be put on dad's shoulders and dad will do everything for her. No, and sometimes, and it's interesting because my wife and I have a little bit of a different dynamic. We both issued discipline when we needed to, but my wife tended to be a little softer where I tend to be a little harder. And the reason I was harder was exactly that. I wanted her to be able to figure it out. Okay, so there were times where I was like, okay, Jordan, these are your choices, but you're going to need to figure it out. I'm not here. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It could have been with her friends in school or whatever. I don't want, why? Because I want you to practice. I want you to use that decision-making muscle that you have. Because the more you're able to make those decisions, the better you're going to be when you get out there in the big bad life and you have to make those really big decisions. You're going to already be able to make those decisions. Okay. And I'm doing this because I love you and I want you to succeed. I don't want you to have to run back to mom and dad every time you want to make a decision about what you're going to eat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm blessed now that she now at 18 years old, almost 19 years old now, is got that. She's so independent now, where she does things that I'm like, holy cow, she takes risks and she's doing things. And if there's a friend that pisses her off, she's like, well, then go to hell. I'm going to move on.
Good.
She's now she has that toughness.
Yeah, it's confidence.
Exactly.
It's you know what it is? It's foundational. She's got a foundation.
Yes, right. Exactly.
It's a solid foundation that she can build on.
Right.
And if anybody comes in and tries to shake that up, it's like, well, we don't need that here.
Exactly.
You know, and that's just not going to work. And having that, comes from being raised with confidence.
Yes.
Being disciplined but also loved.
Exactly. Right.
So
and that balance, right.
She knows that if she really needs to call dad,
of course.
Call dad.
Of course.
She knows that if she has to call mom for whatever, she's going to call mom without any questions at all.
That's right.
But she also knows that maybe I can try to figure this out and then tell them what I figured out.
Right. Exactly.
She has that ability, and that is like that is the way you raise a child. I mean,
exactly. But it's interesting because it's also in the conversations you have with them. Because once you get to that level, I'm sure, John, you have it, especially with your daughter. Now she's older and she's having more adult conversations, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you sit down with them and they come to you, and they're starting to have this conversation about, this is what happened, this is what my friend did, and this is what we're doing, and you're sitting there, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
This kid, you're having now the conversations have elevated to this point where they're making these decisions now for themselves. And you're like, wow, look at that,
Even my son, who's 8, he'll be 9 next month, says, he'll come to me with these stories because he plays with some friends of his on one of his games and stuff. And he'll be like, so anyway, what happened was, and he's telling me these whole stories, and it's hard for me to even listen.
Right.
I'm just so amazed that he's got this whole personality. He's got this whole way of communicating.
Yep.
He speaks very well. I'm also very George and I are from the South Bronx. We're Puerto Ricans, but we just for some reason we never actually we are Puerto Rican. I mean, we're 100% Puerto Rican, as a matter of fact. And I love the culture, and I love being Puerto Rican, and I love the music, and I speak Spanish, and I love all that part of it. But there was a thing that we knew was a thing that was infiltrating the Puerto Rican culture, and it was sort of like this yo kind of a no man, I'm not gonna do that, man. No man, no, it was this weird kind of voice thing that I wanted no part of it.
Right.
I was like into music, I loved the blues, I loved jazz, I loved rock. I was not into any kind of I wanted to enunciate. Sometimes I'll hear some conversations from people, and I'm in the South, where you would think the people the people here in the South, they have that Southern twang, but they're clear.
Yeah.
You understand what they're saying.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just they just have a Southern drawl, but it's not what I'm talking about, which is in New York and in the inner city, and this lazy tongue syndrome, right?
And in Congress.
Oh my God. What is going on? We got 2 senators.
You think about it. I mean, and again, not that we're getting into it, but it's just, you think about it. When we were kids, Congress people were the most well-spoken, well-dressed, distinguished.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Jose Serrano, right?
Yeah.
Serrano, I've met him.
Yeah.
I've met him. He's a friend. Him and his son, both of them. One is a senator, the other one's a congressman. And Puerto Rican, both of them, 100% Puerto Rican. But man, when you hear them speaking, they are like so intelligent and distinguished and always well kept. And yeah, okay, it's politics. I get it. I'm not talking politics here. I'm talking about being proud of your appearance and your speech and your communication
Yes.
and how you express yourself, there was a pride in that,
That's right.
and it seems like that pride somewhere along the line has been taken away, where now there's no that doesn't even matter. It doesn't, not only appearances, because I mean now you can look any way you want. You can have a nose ring, blue hair, you can be wide, whatever, and you cannot question that. You have to say they are beautiful, but nobody aspires to be that.
Right.
Nobody aspires to be that. Like if I went up to someone and I say, "Wow, you look great. You look like Lizzo," they would probably be offended.
Yeah.
If I say, "Hey, you look like this person," that doesn't whatever, they probably would be offended.
Yeah.
Who do they say? "Oh, well, you look like J Lo." Well, there you go. Wow, J Lo looks hot. I want to look like J Lo, or I mean, J Lo is in her 50s and she looks like phenomenal, right? She's got them Puerto Rican jeans, though. That's a little bit, that's different.
Are you saying it's in the genes, John?
It's in the jeans. Careful, time to be canceled.
Sit on this, John.
You see, now, John, if he was a sensitive guy, would have been completely offended by that.
I am so shocked. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to get over this.
Right now in the United States.
I guess right now in the United States, I guess I'm over it now. So, I think that part of the pride we need to kind of bring back, being proud.
Agreed. That's a great point, though. That is a great point, because I exactly that point. I see people that speak that way, and I'm like, I never thought about speaking. And I part of it is like, okay, they're cool. I guess that's the cool way to talk, but
it's not cool. It's like a, what it is? It's a laziness to show that you really don't care, that you're really like not, you're kind of over it. So like, yeah, man, I don't know, whatever, man. It's like, I mean, I've interviewed people. You told me a couple of funny stories but I interviewed this girl once. She was anyway, she came in, no smiling or anything. She just sat down and she sat like this in the chair. I'm not shitting you, bro. She sat like this.
Crazy.
She said like this. And I said to her, so I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah. Yeah, I'm good." I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "No, that's it." And I said, "Oh, you seem like you were tired." He said, "No, I'm tired, but yeah, I'm good." So I said, "All right." So I said, "So what brings you here? What makes you want to work here?" And she's like, "I need a job." I was like, "Well, at least she was honest." And obviously I didn't hire her, but my point on that is, if she would have just come in looking exactly same clothes, same everything, and just, even if she would have had a little bit of the speech thing, she would have just been, like, AOC, for instance, right? AOC has this, she tries, I mean?
Yeah.
She's trying. She's trying. She's pretty, and she's trying to be, and so if she would have come in like that, she would have had a job.
Yeah.
I got no problem with that. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to judge a person because of how they were raised or the environment that they were raised in, of how they speak. It's the same thing if somebody comes in who were raised in the South and they come in with a Southern thing. I'm not going to look at them and be like, "Oh, they're raised in the South." What? Right. Somebody comes in from Africa and they have an African accent. I'm not saying it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not about the actual sounds. It's about, what are those sounds projecting? What are you giving out with those sounds? Are you, you can talk about somebody like that's kind of, maybe a thug or whatever, but then you can hear somebody like Ice Cube talking. Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
All these guys that are out there, they're all like that, but they're saying stuff.
Right.
They're saying real things.
Yes.
They're real. They're being real. even I tell you what, even I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna
Oh
go here.
no!
I'm
Oh
gonna go
no!
here.
Here we go.
But even Cardi B,
Oh no!
even no,
Okay.
listen to me.
I
Listen
have
to
to
me.
draw the line there, John.
I
I'm
know,
sorry.
but listen to me. Even Cardi B, I've heard her in her way, and she's half Puerto Rican, right? So we got to go in the way she said it. She was actually saying some real stuff that that I saw in a video once, not long ago, where she was talking about this whole thing that she got involved in with the political stuff, and it blew up, and it was like, and she was all upset about it. She was saying some real stuff, and then shortly after that, it canceled. People didn't want to hear about her anymore. You didn't see her get called up to represent anybody anymore. She's not fighting for the party anymore. They don't want her anymore. Why? Because she, as whatever she talks like, she thought and she said it, and she actually said something that really, really was profound and really made sense. And profound.
But I think a lot of it also. Well, when you look at Congress people, for example, if you look at older videos of the Jasmine Crockett's of the world and those, they spoke very differently.
Oh,
Right?
wait,
They
wait.
didn't, right? They didn't speak the way they speak now, right? So a lot of it is an act too. But if Cardi B comes in for the interview and sits down and starts talking the way she just normally talks, am I going to hire her?
Well, if she just talks the way she normally talks, but doesn't curse, and just says that she's a hard worker, and that and she doesn't say anything vulgar, but that's the way she talks, that's the way she communicates. I have no reason.
So let me ask you
Discriminating
this:
against
you're the head of the company, and she's going to be your receptionist. She's going to be the first person that people walk in and see when.
I would not hire her for a receptionist, depending on what my business is. Like if my business is like if I sold crack, then yes. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but like if like for instance, like if I had a law firm, I probably would not, not put her now. Now, if I had a law firm and we were in the Bronx, right? If I was if I was with like you and I had a law firm, right? Batista Soto,
Right.
right? Batista and Soto, law firm. We would, in the Bronx, having someone like that's respectful, that does the job, but has that cadence, that speaking voice, that tone, whatever we want to call that thing, that might be effective, because people will come in and feel, people from that area, inner city, whatever it is, they would feel like like they belong. Like it's like, okay, like I can. This is somebody who would get me, So this conversation is borderline, racism and discrimination, right?
But the point is, listen, I'm Puerto Rican.
No.
And she's Puerto
You're
Rican,
discriminating.
right? I'm Puerto Rican. She's Puerto Rican. I mean,
Yeah, but that's the whole
I
thing.
should be saying I would hire her for anything.
But that's my point. We would only hire on merit.
Right.
See, that's my
Correct.
point.
Correct.
So if she comes
Correct.
in and she has that tone, but she's capable, she has
No,
a
if she's
resume. She has a resume.
Correct.
But this is the way she talks.
Right.
And maybe when she's not in front of the camera or in front of the business, and
Right.
maybe she's behind having lunch with everybody. Maybe she
Right.
gets a little bit more thuggish, and maybe she'll say something. I don't care about that. As long as she's up front and she's being professional. I don't care. It's just
Right.
about merit. It's not about anything else. But that's.
But then if that's the case, then the girl that comes in and sits like this in the interview, right? And she said, "Yeah, I just need a job," right? What if you put her to work and she's one of the best employees you've ever had?
I know she wasn't gonna be.
How do you know that?
I'm 100% because her body language showed me 100%. First of all, you're in this business of humans, right? We're in the
Right.
business of humans, and that's what we do. We interact with humans.
Yes,
been
but
doing
we
this show,
judge.
we've interviewed. Everyone judges,
Of course.
but you judge either illegally or you judge
Correct.
based on your upbringing.
Right, but when you have an interview, the whole point of getting dressed and speaking properly and having everything put together as a neat package, no matter what, when you go into that interview, you're going to judge. And if you have two different people who speak completely differently, there's going to be a discernment between those two people and how they are judged.
That's true. This
Okay.
is why,
Now they could both be stellar employees. Okay. That I'm half kidding about that, but what I'm saying is that the presentation is just a big of a deal in an interview, right? As the employee actually working.
huge. I've hired many of those speakers because I've worked at the health club industry
Right.
for 18 years, and I hired a whole bunch of people for front desk stuff and interviewed, and unfortunately had to fire some as well.
All of them.
Yeah. All the Puerto Ricans. I fired only Puerto Ricans.
Damn you.
No,
John.
but I mean, you know,
It's insensitive.
yeah. You know, all the people that I brought in were because they're personal. First of all, I always believe in hiring a personality first and you train later. Somebody that comes in with a bunch of training and a bunch
Agreed.
of degrees,
Agreed.
but it's kind of like a jerk or something, or just I'm not interested in that. I don't care how good they are in a certain thing if they don't make me feel good when I'm around them, right?
Right.
If they're just awkward or they're just nasty or whatever. I've hired people based on that. I remember one girl came in, she had no experience. She was an actress. She came in, she was smiling, she laughed, she had a great laugh. She started the following week. She worked there for for a long time. She worked there as my front desk person, and she was great. She greeted everybody with friendly, and she did the job. You know, I instinctively knew
Yeah.
that this was actually a play. This I knew
Right.
from step one. I was like, this ain't gonna work because I can't put you at the front desk, because if you're like that now, knowing you're going
Yes.
to be judged,
Right.
this is the judge, right?
Exactly.
We're in the judgment business.
Yes.
When you're hiring people,
100%.
but not just that, even in entertainment, right?
Yeah.
If you're in entertainment, you're in the judgment business. So you know, going in, that's the only thing they're looking at is to judge you.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, and
that's-
it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It means that they're going to look and see if you fit this role, and if you're going to make their life easier,
Yep.
whether it's an acting role, whether it's a job for a front desk, whatever it is, you have to make their job easier. And if you walk in and you do this, they already know you're not going to make their job easier. You're going to make it harder. Now I have to manage you. I worked for a club, a terrible club, and they hired some horrible people.
Yeah.
I could say that now because it's 20 some years and I don't really care, and I don't even talk to these people anymore. So wherever they are, if they're seeing this, hi, you know who you is.
Well, the lady actually came up.
Sit
and-
on this, John.
I was my manager. So my they hired people on emotional things, on
Yeah,
an emotional.
yeah.
One was an alcoholic, the other one was a pill popper, very nasty, very cliquey,
Right.
very judgmental, critical. And I went to the boss and I said, this is what's going on. And he was like, I don't want to get involved. It's between you and them. And I don't want to get involved. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then and that was it. I had to leave that job,
Right.
And they went under. They had 5 clubs. All 5 clubs went under.
Wow.
They lost everything. I mean, it was like, well, yeah, of course. You're not hiring. You're bringing people in because you're not judging them properly. You're not even sure that they can even do the job. You're just hiring them because you feel like they need this.
Right.
They need it.
Right.
They really need a job. I want to help them. Well, they're going to ruin your business. They're going to ruin your business. And that's what happened with that business. And I have a lot of stories like that. But again, the emotional, I was strong enough to not take it,
Yeah.
because this is what happens, right? If I was too sensitive, I would just be complaining.
True.
I would just complain and complain. But no, I went right to the boss, to the head guy, and I told him what the problem was. He didn't want to do anything about it, so I left. You know what I mean? And but again, that comes from that tougher foundation. A lot of people may just be like, well, they can't do anything now. I just got to take it. I got to work here. And for years and years and years until they get so bad that they get fired.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? So that's part of the craziness of it. Oh wow, we've gone over here.
Are you still on TikTok?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
wanna
every
make sure.
1 hour, then I have to reset. But I did that already. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Don't be sensitive. Don't soak crack.
Don't so
And
crack.
don't don't sit like this if you're in an interview. That's another rule. And try to enunciate. Try to pronounce your words clearly. Because when you talk like this, nobody's gonna ever give you a job. If nobody's gonna hire you, you're not gonna do well in life. You're gonna struggle. So when you're speaking to somebody, you say, "Hey, I would like to communicate something to you." And yes, you'll be made fun of, but someday they'll be working for you.
I remember King of Queens when Carrie was trying to get rid of her accent because she
my
was
God.
going on an interview, and so she was trying not to say coffee and
Coffee.
office.
Get that New York thing. But again, that's in New York. If you do your job well,
Right.
it shouldn't be a problem. All right, friends, want to thank you all for tuning in today. We appreciate you all very, very much. We'll be back next week, 7 p.m. Central on Sunday with George Batista. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate you very much. We love you. Have a wonderful week ahead. And as always, peace.